What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Real quick though, go down below in the description, click on the link for the Comic Book Community Awards. The voting period is still open, but not for very much longer. So go in there and vote for your favorite comic book creators on YouTube. So let's get into it right now. I'm gonna go ahead and put my grading scale up. You know how this works. Every time I introduce a book, I'm gonna put the cover of the book on the grading scale so you can see how they stack up against each other. And you know, we're gonna start in the big two as we always do with Batman issue 139 from Zdarsky. This is a good place to jump on if you have not been reading Chip Zdarsky's Batman. I don't know why you wouldn't be, but this is a good place to jump on because we're coming out of the wave of the whole Gotham City war with Selina. There's still some things that are lingering from that storyline, but we're basically out of that going into our new arc. So there are some leftovers from that arc, but you really don't need to know what's going on to understand what's happening inside of here. We're introducing a very classic Batman villain. Of course, Chip could not write Batman without including this character, and we all know and love who it is. This is more of a detective psychological drama right now so far, and he's trying to pull at the heartstrings of Batman a little bit and involve some of the influences in his life, which I thought was a pretty interesting take on it. We'll see exactly where this goes. Batman's in a very tough situation, but it still has a common thread through some of the Batman stuff that we've read recently. There's this common thread that is still there, and this villain is certainly taking advantage of that psychological state. So Batman 139, amazing art as always. Interesting story. I knew Chip couldn't stay away from this character. We'll see where it goes. All right, jumping over into Marvel, we have Gods issue number 2. Now, I loved issue number 1. There was some issues with it, but I liked the overall package. I liked the delivery of it. I like the look and the feel of it. Essentially having Wynn introduced into the Marvel universe as this Constantine-like character. Now, this book is a little bit more disjointed. I really don't know exactly what is going on in the first couple of pages. We have a lot of our magic users basically talking about some older Marvel villains and whatnot that have been around, and we don't exactly know the threads or don't exactly know what's going on there, but we are introduced to another character. And her role so far is kind of like Neo in the Matrix. She's trying to do her best, live her average life, but she is introduced to this magical world. And so our perspective is through her eyes, kind of witnessing the magic of the Library of the Worlds and things like that. And the basic question we have for her right now is, does she want to live in this real world that she is in right now, where she's constantly stressed out about school and everything in her future? Or does she want to go down this more magical path and explore everything the world has to offer her? So it was an interesting book, but it's basically like we're like watching The Matrix again, because you essentially have these two worlds that this girl is living in right now, and she has to choose her path forward. So it's pretty interesting. So we're doing a lot more world building. We're introducing more characters. I don't exactly know why we're doing that, and the first part of this book was a little bit disjointed. I wasn't kind of connecting all the pieces. So, you know, still a good book. We'll see where it goes though. The next one, we have the long-awaited Punisher issue number 1. So I loved the previous Punisher run, one of the best Marvel books out there right now. So I was really questioning where are we going to go with this issue, because the Punisher, as we know, Frank Castle, is kind of off in this other world right now, shepherding these kids through all the dangers of that world. And we are introduced to a new character that kills a lot of villains. I'm not going to call him Punisher yet, because I don't even think they call him Punisher yet in this story. There's some gang activity and some sleeper shield cells all over the place, and this person was kind of like an off-the-books kind of an operative, taking out people, doing these strategic like assassination attempts, and of course he was found out, and there were some repercussions once the villains kind of knew who he was. So he's got a very similar origin story to Frank Castle himself, and he's just like a dude. He's a man on a mission, man. Very well equipped, has lots of technology, lots of know-how. He's been doing this forever kind of a thing. But I think everything that makes him the Punisher is just like consequential. So like his skills and ability, he's just a really well-trained dude. And the fact that he's wearing this outfit right here, I think is completely on accident. I think he mentions it's just body armor or something like that. It's like a standard issue type of a thing. So I don't recall anywhere in this book people are like, the Punisher's back. You know, there's some hints as to there was a brutal scene at this one gang hideout, and it was reminiscent of the Punisher, but I don't think he's walking around saying, yeah, I'm the Punisher now, and you guys got to deal with that kind of stuff. So I don't know, a little bit of a mixed message. It was a cool issue. There was tons of action and things like that, and a cool little arc and an interesting origin, but it wasn't a totally original origin. But I still had a good time with it. I just have a lot of questions still. All right, next Marvel book is Thanos issue number 1. Thanos is back, man. And what does it mean for the overall Marvel universe? Who the hell knows? Because there's so many disjointed storylines right now in the Marvel comics. Who knows what the actual impact of this story is going to be? But we are introduced to a new character. She is this like waitress. She's just kind of chilling right now in California. She doesn't really have a history that we go over just yet, but there's an implication here that she has some kind of a mental psych block going on, and she had this big grand purpose in the past that she has since moved on from because she's forgotten it. She does look very similar to like Lady Death or something like that. So that's going to be an interesting thing to uncover as we go. And then we understand that Thanos is actually on the loose, and he's basically ripping the ground up inside of California to get a hold of this certain person. And there is a very interesting team of heroes that appears at the end to try to stop this whole threat. So I'm not going to spoil exactly who that is or what my assumptions are about what the makeup of that team, but it's a really cool group of individuals. And so again, there's still a lot of questions going on. There's some psychic block stuff, so we don't exactly know like how Thanos got out, why he's after this person, and what the implication is of this whole reunion of these new heroes. So Thanos number 1, cool stuff happens in it. A lot of questions though, so we're gonna see where it goes. All right, next we have Transformers issue number 1 from Daniel Warren Johnson, another killer issue. Lots of cool Easter eggs inside of this one as well. First off, the perspective on this cover is amazing. I love that from like that cockpit view. Very, very cool. And there's a lot going on with that scene in particular. But if you're not so familiar with the Transformers universe, as far as like the history and why they ended up on Earth and the battles between the good guys and bad guys, this is the issue for you because there's lots of explainer in here. And you're kind of have the perspective of the humans that they interact with here. So there's lots of good information that is shared inside of here. Decepticons are up to no good. They found a way to harness Earth's energy to kind of like resurrect or power up their own troops and whatnot. And because of that, there's some pretty cool interactions with the humans later on, and some Easter eggs are in this issue. So amazing artwork in here. I really don't want to show you anything because there's some spoiler stuff in here, but you just know that there's some amazing stuff coming on the way. Issue number 3, I cannot wait for it because of the cliffhanger at the end of issue number 2. So they're doing a really good job of including people who don't exactly know this universe very well into the hype for this book. And I think they're doing a killer job with that with Daniel Warren Johnson on art and story. It's amazing. Check it out. Petrol Head issue number 1, probably one of the sleeper hits of the week, to be honest with you. I got it because it was just a cool artistic cover. And I thought it was going to be an interesting thing if they were able to pull that through into the main comic itself, and they certainly did. There's some really cool things happening inside here. So we have a futuristic landscape. We had these governing bodies that are trying to find ways to, keep the masses distracted. So they came up with this Petrol Head. They came up with this big race. It was kind of like not like a Twisted Metal, more of like a race version of that without all the bombs and stuff. But it's kind of an outdated thing at this point. A lot of those guys grew up in that area and they were like born and bred for that kind of a race. And so they don't really know how to leave that behind. We are in a situation now where we have like the elite inside of these domes, and we have like the outcasts out there and like the smog and things like that from all the pollution and radiation of the world. And we have this guy who's pretty much abandoned all of his faith in humanity. He just wants to live in his garage, working on his hot rod. But he's mixed into this drama behind like the scientists of this elite world and the law enforcement there. And they're trying to escape. And so they kind of team up for a little bit in here. Very cool book. It has a really interesting voice to it as well. The tone and the vibe and the feel of the book is really interesting. I love the color and the artwork in here too. So Petrol Head, sleeper hit of the week, I think. Make sure to check it out. Infield Gang Massacre issue number 4, another great one. I would suggest, though, that buying this book in trade is probably the best way to go because I really want to know more and more as I read this book. And they seem kind of short. They're probably about average length, but it just seems like a short issue. The only cool thing about having the single issues is obviously digesting that story in little bits and pieces and staying along and staying current. But the look, the feel, the vibe, the texture, the smell of the book is outstanding. So great production quality in the book in general. But the story itself, I want to consume it in a large format all at the same time. But yeah, with that said, there's some crazy artwork in here. Interesting story. I'm waiting for the mystery or like the detective part of the story to really come up, right? We've been doing a lot of gun battles, which is cool. I love seeing some really interesting action, especially in this art style and this package. But I'm still waiting for a little bit more of the who did it, you know what I mean? Trying to figure that out, the mystery. I think we're heading in that direction, but it's taking a long time right now. We're on 4 issues and we're still basically in this gunfight that we started back in issue number 2, 1, maybe. So waiting for that to progress, but I've been loving the ride so far. That's why I think that in a collected format, this is going to read really well and really quickly. So yeah, I've been loving this book. Check it out. From Boombox, we have Zawa issue number 1. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Z-A-W-A, Zawa. That's what I'm going to say. This is a cool book. Again, it's this future landscape where these kids are growing up and they had a father who worked in this one kind of a plant and he has since died, but the kids are trying to, you know, live their life. And there's this rumor that they had some kind of monster like chained up somewhere at this factory, and they get to explore it a little bit, trying to, you know, gather some rations, stay alive, get some more ingredients for their bakery, for their culinary skills. And they actually come face to face with this monster that's been locked up in the basement, and we don't exactly know who this monster is or why they're down there, what the abilities are, but we just know this thing like consumes everything, and now it is on the loose to basically terrorize the town. So we're going to get more into that. I will say the art in here is unlike any art I've ever seen before. It is absolutely gorgeous. The color palette's really cool. There's a mixture of like real thick lines and real thin lines that just kind of works, but like the coloring makes everything pop and it makes it look so beautiful. So big shout out to the team there for putting this all together. It was a really beautiful book. We're going to see where it goes, though. You know, the story is pretty simplistic so far. The characters are interesting, and we're going to see if they basically adopt this kid or adopt this monster and try to like acclimate it to the real world. I would imagine that's where this kind of a story has to go. So yeah, Zawa, interesting book. Did you guys read it? Let me know what you guys thought. All right, we have TMNT 145, The Road to 150. Cool cover on here as well. Like I said, I've been a little bit new to TMNT, kind of getting into the IDW run right here, trying to figure things out. We're coming out of our latest arc, so this is a good place to jump in if you haven't yet. The only backstory you really need is that Donatello apparently does something in the future that really jacks up the universe. We had a little one-shot where a future Raphael comes back in time to stop him. Really cool premise, but as far as I'm aware, that really wasn't followed up on yet, and that ended in a very interesting way, so I really want to know more about that particular part. But we have the forces basically split up right now, and Donatello is doing a little bit of experimenting to see if he can stop you know, the future from happening the way that he thinks it's going to happen. And because of that, of course, some stuff goes wrong. Some people from the future, there's some timeline stuff happening right now. They interfere and kind of start messing things up. And of course, there are some problems we need to fix now with basically causing Armageddon yet again in here. I don't even know what that means, but it's in the book and it's kind of interesting. So if you've been avoiding IDW's TMNT because you don't really know when to jump in, this is probably a good place to jump in, but just know that the whole point of this is Donatello trying to figure out how he cannot screw up the universe by trying to screw up the universe, I guess. So I don't know. We'll see what 150 has for us. You guys reading it? Let me know. Scott Snyder's Canary issue number 1, originally released on Comixology, hitting print over in Dark Horse. This was a great issue. I thought I read this back in the day because a lot of Scott Snyder stuff came out at once, like over a year ago, it feels like at this point. And I read a bunch of it and I thought I read this one, but it turns out I did not. First off, very cool cover. It's only foil up here, it looks like. And everything else just looks like it would be foil, but it's not. I kind of like that restraint. So props to the team for doing that. Otherwise, good quality book. It's very, very long. Of course, it was like a completed series over on Comixology, so it's ready to go. And it has a near cardstock cover. So presentation-wise, really, really cool. If you're into Westerns and you like demonology kind of stuff or possession or monster type things, or just crazy villains in general, you're going to really dig this book. So I really recommend checking this one out. Art style is incredible as well. It has this color palette to it that makes it feel like Infield Gang Massacre, but it has this darkness to it as well. Again, the page quality kind of helps with that, I would say. Maybe it doesn't help with it, but it changes the vibe and feel for this. But we're following a very, very well trained and equipped like Marshall, right? He's having to deal with these different weird murders that are happening in this little town, and they think the source of evil for all these murders is this mine that he has some kind of history with, and of course is like a local legend in the town of Canary. So he's having to visit it with this guy who studies rocks as a geologist, and they're trying to make some sense of this. Now he has a lot of past and history with this town and this really like sadistic murderer, and so he's trying to like balance all this at the moment. A lot of memories are coming back up, mixed in with a lot of the crazy crap that's happening right now in these towns. Really great read. It takes a little while to get through because it's probably double-sized issue, but I think it's worth it. Scott Snyder's not always my favorite, and he has a lot of tropes that don't really jive with me. They don't exist in this book, which is really cool. Check this one out. Then the last book this week was Mahdi's Bootleg Spider-Man issue number 2 from Superhero Comics. The first one was incredible. This is issue number 2, and we have this larger format. I think his other one was like 6x9 or whatever, and this is probably like 8x11 or whatever the dimension is for this book. It is really something else. Very mature. It's not in any kind of collaboration with Marvel, but there's some really cool stuff going on. Black and white interior art, and it just completely pops. If you like Mahdi's style, you're really going to dig this book, obviously, so make sure to check this one out. In the previous issue, though, Peter Parker Spider-Man, who's a little bit different Spider-Man than what we are used to. He actually gets sick and tired of fighting the Sinister Six over and over again, so he goes on this murdering rampage and literally kills them all. And he thinks he's going to have some kind of like good response from that from the town and from the locals and whatnot. And they do give him that, but they also compare him to Batman. So he starts this blood feud with Batman, taking his travels over to Gotham City, confronting Harley Quinn, confronting Joker, and confronting Batman and Alfred in this book as well. The ending is crazy. It's actually like made me sad to see the ending because I enjoyed the series so much. And it was such a cool book. I'm loving it. There's a little shot of the back cover there too. Very stylish, very artistic, incredible artwork, great storytelling. He just knocks it out of the park with everything he puts together. So make sure to check him out over at Superhero Comics. Well, guys, that's everything I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. And while you're down there, hit that like button, check out the subscribe button, and hit that join button. I would really appreciate it. But as always, thank you again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.